full program today. Our first topic is compact storage system for your cars that I'll be talking about. Then Terry Moore will be doing his blog. George Johnson will talk a little bit about this summer's NSC Nashville convention. And then John Wallis is going to talk about speed matching. So it should be a very interesting program. Next month, we have a couple of openings. We have a short topic opening, and if you've got a 30-minute main topic, we're ready for that too. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling because it is a full slate. We want to try to get it in as close to an hour as we can. I'm going to go first, so let me screen share and okay. You know, when we go to these shows, a lot of us, whether we got a bunch of cars we want to bring, we want to run our trains, but it's a real pain to try and get all those cars out of their little jewel case boxes on the track, and even a bigger pain to find which one goes in which box and get it all put away. And it gets frustrating, and those jewel cases take up a lot of space. So I've come up with a different way to do things, and it's what I call my compact train storage system. N-scale is kind of a vicious circle. The good thing about N-scale is it reduces the layout space limitations that we have but when it does that, because of the small space, it allows us to longer trains and therefore more cars. But then all these cars we got take up even more space. So what do? If you want to run large trains, you need to find a way to do it that's efficient, organized, safe, secure, and portable. And so here is the magic answer that works for me. This is a view of a shelf in one of my closets in my train room. And each one of these things is a cookie sheet, standard size cookie sheet. And each one of those cookie sheets has a train in it. That's what it looks like when you look down on it. You'll notice that there is and this grid is made out of poster board, and it sits on a piece of compact foam. And in this one tray, I can carry about 17.8 feet of train, which is a damn good sized train. It'll 65 cars. If you have 40-foot box cars, you can get 5 in a row, 13 rows is 65. If you've got 50-foot box cars, you get 4 in a row, so you get 52. So somewhere between 52 and 65 cars on a sheet. It's quick and easy for setup, and it's quick and easy to store. It keeps the cars in order. You don't have to mess with the jewel cases, and it's portable, as I'll show you in a little bit. So there's two parts to this, the cookie sheets themselves and then the storage rack. So let's look at the cookie sheets. Here's one, and you notice this green here and green here. This is a sheet of compact foam, and I buy them in pairs, and one of them you cut down to fit inside the cookie sheet. You have to trim them off to size, and then you have to round the corners so they fit in the cookie sheet. The other things you need are poster board, a glue stick, a ruler and straight edge, scissors, a pencil, and Scotch tape, and you need a way to cut the foam and the poster board. Now, those of you who are fortunate to have a spouse that is into quilting or is a seamstress, she'll have one of these rotary cutting mats and a rotary cutter. Those things are great, but I'll tell you this, go buy her a new cutter and take the old one, because if you use a good one, you're dead meat. But once you get that, you can do all this stuff with those tools. So what you're doing is you're building a grid of 13 rows of poster board that are just wide enough to hold cars. And then we'll build them in one of several ways. Here's one of them that's designed to hold Bethgon coal porters. They're a little bit shorter, so that extra space you can take over in the side, and you can put 2 more cars in a caboose to fill up the sheet and get maximum use out of it. 13 rows in one column. Same thing applies with 39-foot tank cars. You can get 3 extra ones on the side over here. So that's 68 cars you can carry in a tray. If you're doing grain hoppers, you can get 3 in each, so that's 13, that's 39, and 8 over here is 47. And if you get fancy down where these little foam sections are, you can put another section of grid and put a caboose in there. You kind of custom make these things to fit the cars you want. And if you're doing a mixed freight, then you don't need any of that stuff. If you're doing passenger trains, you can get 2 nice passenger trains in one of these. There's room for 13 cars, plus on the side, you got room for front end cars, and you can do 1 on each side. You get 2 trains out of that. So how do you build this thing? Well, what you do is you're going to take that that cutting tool and the straight edge and your sheet of poster board, and you're going to cut 14 1 inch wide by 18 and 1/6 inch long slats. Now you can also make this thing, this is for standard size cars. If you have tall cars like excess height box cars or auto racks and stuff like that, make them 1 1/4 inch tall. You cut 2 pieces for the side, they're 12 1/3 inches long. And then on each of those things, you score each end of that slat, 3/4 from the end, and crease it to form glue tabs. This is what that looks like when you do that. Here are these 14 strips. Here are the 2 end strips. And you notice they've got the little creases there. They're bent so they can fold and tab. And you're going to glue these tabs onto these side strips where you see the little dash marks. So that's what you do next. Is you mark dash on lines on those 2 short slats every 5/6 of an inch. Now these are just wide enough for a car with a little bit of room of play where they'll fit in there fine, but they're not going to be flopping around, but they're not going to be stuck to anything. And those marks are where that crease will go on each board. So you attach the 12 interior slats to 1 short slat with a glue stick, holding the tabs to the side panel at each mark. And that's what it's going to look like when you glue that on there. They're going to be glued on this way and they're going to lean. Then you're going to take all these things, and you're going to bend it the other way. And you're going to put the glue stick against the other tabs, align it to the mark, and then you're going to get that thing. Now I'm going to go out of screen share for just a second. I want to show you that here's what these things are, is a grid like this. But when you fold it, it actually folds flat. And you know the thing is done right if it folds flat that way and folds flat the other way as well. So go back to screen sharing now. So once you get that made, you trim off the corners down to 1 corner, because as I mentioned at the beginning, the cookie sheets are rounded at the end. If you don't, the things won't sit down in there flat. So you nip corners, and then you tape them with Scotch tape to make them extra sturdy so they won't come loose. So in the end, you have this, like I was showing you earlier. There's the corner where they're nipped there and there, and that's your finished grid. Now what you do then is, we all talked about this standard extruded foam, 3/4 inch foam that they use for insulating foam for construction. You can still find the 3/4 inch. You cut strips of that, and those fit in perfectly in this thing. So where you don't have cars, you can put these things as fillers. It stiffens and stabilizes the grid so it doesn't flop around. And when you have that, as you're building a train, you can take the foam out, put a car in as you acquire one until you get the tray full. When you look at it sideways, it looks like this. It's real easy to use an Avery 5160 label and print out the deal. Or if you're lazy, you can, or don't have that stuff on your computer, you can just take a piece of tape and put it on there and a Sharpie and write on what's in the box. Now, what you put in each tray is kind of up to you. I do mine by trains. I build trains, but some people like to put all cars, put a tray full of 40-foot box cars, a tray of reefers, a tray of Gons, or some people like to put all their Santa Fe's in one and their Chicago Northwesterns in another. some people are trying to build things in certain areas, put trains in a certain area. If it's pre-1940, it goes in this tray. If it's 40 to 50, it goes in another, so on and so forth. So you fix them the way you want them, and then you put them in the storage rack. So let's talk about the storage racks for a minute. The closet storage rack that I showed you, what you're doing, the closet I'm in is a walk-in closet, and one section of it has the shelf where it's divided, where there's a section at the top for shirts and the shelf underneath, and it's open at the bottom, and the other side has the tall thing for pants and coats and things like that. So on the side that had the short deal up top, that's where I built this thing. What you have to do first is reinforce the bottom shelf by screwing braces below the shelf into the studs, because when you get 15 to 20 of these things in there, it does add a lot of weight. Then you cut sands to do that. After you get the bottom in, you cut sand and install 2 vertical supports from standard particle board shelves, which are normally 12. They're nominally 12. Actually, they're 11.5 inches thick, wide, and 3/4 of an inch thick. And you space those vertical things about 19.25 inches apart, and that just is wide enough for those cookie shelves to fit in. So after you get that, you cut and sand horizontal runners by ripping a 1x4 into 4 3/4 inch wide strips, and that's what the trays set on, the little fins on the side set on those racks. So when you cut that, you're ending up with 3/4 by 3/4 strips, long stocks, and you chop those to 11 inch in length, and you drill pilot holes each runner for the screws. And then starting at the bottom, you glue and screw those runners to each side of that box. The first one you start with the bottom of it 1/2 inch off the bottom shelf, so the tray will hang on the shelf and not sit on the bottom. And then you make a spacer. For standard shelf spacing, you make 2 of them that are 7/8 inch tall. And this is what I'm talking about. You're gluing, here's your runner on the side, here's the one on the other side, your vertical. These are the runners. You start at the bottom, you glue one in, you put this 7/8 or 14/16, that's why it's marked as 14, above it, and then you put your next one on top. When you do it, use a couple of clamps to hold those down, because if you don't, the 2 sides will get out of alignment. They won't be level. So when you get all that done, you're through. Other thing you can do is some variations. You can take one tray and have no foam and no grid, put engines in the jewel case, set them on edge to maintain even lubrication, and you can make a rack of engines that's separate. And if you do that, the spacer for the shelf above that rack of engines should be 1.5 inches, not 7/8 of an inch. Here's a look at what a tray looks like that has engines in it on edge. Now, if you don't have a closet, but you still like the idea, you can take those 2 sides, build a base on it, a lid on it, put a masonite back on it, add wheels and maybe even a door, and you can size it to fit under your layout. And you got a portable, and then that gives you that portable system. I take the thing and I build a box that'll hold 5 of these. It's heavy, but not too heavy. I can lift it, and it fits in the trunk of my car. I can grab any 4 trains I want, grab engines. If I don't fill it all with engines, I've got room for my throttles and batteries and that sort of stuff, and I'm ready to go to a show. And it beats the hell out of doing all that setup, pulling everything out of a jewel case. It worked for me, it may work for you. What do you do with all those jewel cases? That's what an old storage box is for. You stick them in the closet and wait until Mark's ready to sell his stuff, and then you get them out and put them back in a jewel case. So where do you find it all? I went through this pretty fast. Where do you find these instructions? Well, you already have access to them. First, I published this in 2010 in N-Scale magazine. It was published in the November-December 2017 NTRAK newsletter, and it's online now on the website in the members only area under tips and techniques. So if you're interested in that, that tells you how to do it. If you have any questions, you can call me at any time. Be glad to help you out. Got through with that. Let's go to George. George, I ask you to try and keep this to 10 minutes if you can, please.
Hey, everybody. Hi, I'm George Johnson. I'm the chairman of the N-Scale Enthusiast, and we're here to talk about conventions. And I'm not going to talk for 10 minutes. I'm going to let Dick do that, who's the head of our convention stuff. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we have conventions and what our purpose is when we do them. The why, kind of easy. It's a really great way to see all of your N-Scale friends in one place at one time. We do move it around the country a lot. We go east, middle, west, or east, west, middle, depending on what the sequence is. And we try to visit cities that have some interesting things to actually see when you get there. There's kind of a list of things that we do, and Dick will probably tell you about that, but it usually has something to have the first thing is to have a nice local host. Second thing is to have a nice train ride or something that people actually enjoy doing with their family. And the third thing is to have a nice hotel that actually has enough space to put the layouts in. We've partnered with Nrail to actually manage the layouts for us, and the guys have been doing a great job of putting some really interesting things together. We do like to be very inclusive, which means that it's T-Track, N-Track, Primo, and whatever modular standard is, or if there's a great standalone layout that tours, we'd like to have that too. And we like to have activities where people can get together. Our first and most priority is to promote the hobby, which is very much in line with Nrail's vision. So we always have a kind of a little bit of a train show. We're not really a train show, though. We have a train show, but it's more of a convention to share ideas, methodologies, and fun stuff with people of like minds that have the same disease as we have. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dick Ollendorf, who is very gracious in taking on the responsibility of managing our conventions and has done a good job for a number of years and hates talking to people, but that's okay. I'll let him talk anyway.
Yes, we're going to talk about Nashville. George went through most of it. This is our 28th convention over a lot of years. George says we've been all over the country here, and those are some of the few places we've gone. The convention has changed from a bunch of guys going out to families, and now we have quite a lot of families. In fact, in the current Nashville convention, probably 80% of our attendees are spouses and grandkids and so forth. And that's good for everybody. They enjoy it. And they also represent enough bodies that I can go out and make some deals with some hotels and some events and get some stuff going. But we still need a few things in order to make our convention site work. First of all, is the location. We got to pick a location somewhere in the country that everybody knows and recognizes. So that's good. And it's got to have a hotel that will accommodate us, which would be the size of the hotel, usually 350 to 450 rooms. We need an airport. We need some home layouts. We need some sort of prototypical type trains that were set up there. We need Nrail for the layouts. We have to have something, a fun night that we like to do on a Friday night. And we need the vendors, manufacturers, and local N-scalers that want to participate. We need all those things in order to have a successful convention and also pick a particular site that we want. Where if we're in an area that has something special, something different, we create a Tuesday extra fair. It's not the official convention start, which is Wednesday, but we like to do things. In this case, in Chicago, we rented a boat for lunch that had just been built a year or so before, which looked like a giant greenhouse, but it was air conditioned. And we had a nice luncheon cruise down the Chicago River that everybody enjoyed. That was one thing we did. Other things we've done in Roanoke, we've gone up the Cass Railroad to do that. When we were in Hershey, we put everybody aboard the Amtrak train and went to Altoona and went to the local Norfolk repair shops. This year, on Tuesday, we're going to go to Chattanooga and we're going to go to the Tennessee Valley Railroad. It's a haul, but on Tuesday, since we don't have anything planned at night, we could spend the whole day. So even though it's going to be like a 2.5 hour ride, we're going to go from Nashville all the way to Chattanooga and visit the Tennessee Valley Railroad. And on these things, I never think that we're going to fill the bus up because, who's going to sit for 2.5 hours each way? Well, I hate to tell you, it's March the 12th. We're sold out. I got 170 people that are willing to sit on a bus, or actually 3 buses, and go to Chattanooga to take that ride. So that'll be good. Let's see the next thing here. On Wednesday is our registration day. That's when you come in about 1:30 in the main ballroom, and you go and you get your package and you get yourself ready for the convention. Again, in order to make all these things work, we have to generate some money and have some fun with it. So we have a raffle. We sell shirts, we sell special runs, but the biggest thing is the raffles. We probably go anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 worth of prizes, N-scale prizes. And you can see on the upper left-hand corner there, the display that Freddie Hoxie put together just to show the package. And what you do is you win the entire board. So you can win an entire train. Not to mention at the end of the banquet, we generally have a lot of onesies that we put out. So we do that. This year, we're doing something a little different to kick it off. We have a special registration card that if you register before the convention starts, you're actually before June 1st, I believe is the cutoff date, you get a card and you get a special insert. If you participated in the first Nashville convention 2020, that was canceled, you'll get that registration number printed on the insert of that card at that point. Plus this year's insert, you'll get that. If you're just registering for a first time and order the car, you'll have your name engraved on the insert. I shouldn't say engraved, printed on the insert of the car. The one down below was the original Nashville car that we had. So these are going pretty good. And again, we're almost sold out. I really should first of all say that normally at this time, we just have about half as many registers that we normally have, but I guess everybody really wants to get out of the house. So at this point, everything is going, and I expect probably within the next month to be almost at our limit to what we can do. But continuing on Wednesdays, we have home layouts, and this year we have several. And again, we have all different types. We have N-scale, we have outdoor G-scale layouts, we have HO layouts, and we run a morning and an afternoon tour. It's the same tour, it's just repeated in the afternoon in order to try to get 100 people through for the day. So that's happening on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, you can go check into the model contests. These are some of the exhibits we've had before. The one in the center is a magnificent fire engine that one of the fellows put together. You actually have to see it in person in order to see the detail that's on it. And in the lower right and upper right-hand corners there, that was the module winner in Milwaukee. He totally put details inside the Woolworths shop there, and it was really good. Now, if in the area, there's an ability to go rail fanning. And in Chicago and Kansas City, we had a couple of people that like to go rail fanning. So we gave them a bus and they went out and they did rail fanning. Nashville, you're on your own. I don't have a volunteer, but whenever there's a possibility, we do that.
Just whatever you do, don't ride with Paul Graff. He gets a little excited.
That's true. I figured I'd just show you what the convention hotel looks like, at least the section that we'll be in. There's a whole nother section that has the hotel rooms that are connected to that. But you can see in here, the Heritage Ballroom is the center spot, which we're going to have the welcome reception, the swap-around, and so forth. And right in front of that is the plantation lobby, which will have Primo set up there. In the right-hand corner, in the octagon, is the Nrail Go, and ZoomTRAK is up in the upper right-hand corner. Gillett has more details on exactly what's going to be in there. And if you also notice on there, we have 2 vendors, Texas Rail in Boston and Albany. They'll be setting up stores there so you can go buy stuff all week long. And as usual, we will present all the modules or most of the modules or most of the people that have modules with a special little plaque that they can put on the side there, celebrating being at Nashville. The other things that we have going on Wednesday is you can, by that time, pick up your app. I know this says 2018, but we will have a 2022 app in place. One of our fellows works on that. And that allows you to personalize it so that you know the events that you're going to be on. It's also a way that we can send out a mass notifications to you to tell you when things are going to happen. It'll also have a hotel map on it. And the one thing that's been added this year is a whole series of features for room sales that you can identify, or if you have something that you want to sell and don't want to sell it, swap around and happen to have in your room, you can advertise on the app in order to do that. Along with the app is the timetable. That's just the cover, but it's a booklet that we give every registered person that has all details and hotel maps to get you around the site and tell you what's going to be happening. Okay, this is one of our projects. Speaking of Paul Graff, him and Colin Reinhardt, one day when we were in Roanoke, this is one of our projects. We were able to convince the Norfolk Southern folks to lend us their hopper car. And the Pier 6, it was their 50th anniversary of the Norfolk Southern Pier 6. And we were able to make up a vinyl sticker with our logo. And these two gentlemen volunteered to climb ladders and stick it on the side of the car. Of course, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see we ended up making an N-scale version of it as well. So it is prototypical. On the right-hand side, that's a picture that was taken about 2 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly where in the country, but it's still running around in service with our logo on the side. In the evening, we have a welcome reception. And that welcome reception, basically, we get together to meet everybody, to find out who's there, who's not there from the last time. It's sponsored by Microtrains, and it's free. They pick up the tab for the whole thing, and it's coffee and cake. And during that time, we'll have a guest speaker occasionally. We will also give out awards if we have some. And then we have an NSC meeting. And at that point, you can go yell at George and say what he's doing wrong, or what I'm doing wrong, and give us advice. Come Thursday, when I was putting this thing together, I started to try to figure out what we could say about where we've been. And I realized there are many, I could go on for about 3 hours to just explain the different places we've been. So these are just a few that I picked out. Down in Roanoke, we were able to get into the Norfolk Southern workshop and maintenance shops down there to see what they were retrofitting in their engines. And alongside of that was another building, another company called Freight Car America. And they let us go inside, and they actually assemble cars, their hopper cars. You could actually see how they assembled the cars, which was fantastic. In the lower right-hand corner, that's where we're up in Railtown. And Railtown is a place where Hollywood uses to film a lot of their Westerns and train sequences. George probably could talk more about that, but we were able to rent a locomotive there and spend the whole day running the train back and forth. Next place we had gone to was Standard Steel. This was part of our Hershey, and this is where they actually make the axles and wheels on the prototype engines. And I don't know how they allowed us, but we were able to get inside the place and stand 10, 15 feet away from the forges, and it was fantastic. It was extremely hot, but everybody enjoyed doing that. This is just trying to show you that we go to anything that has to do with trains, and everybody kind of enjoys that. This year, we're going to go to the Musicians Hall of Fame and the Lane Motor Museum. And because unfortunately, that's all we can have as far as trains, except for the Chattanooga Railroad. There's nothing locally in Nashville itself that we can go to during the week. there's stuff on the weekends, but not during the week. In the upper right-hand corner, when we were in Salt Lake City, we went over to the Promontory Point and visited those trains there. Okay, next thing. Of course, Thursday evenings is our live auction. And let me get this out of the way here. Yeah. And what I'm trying to show you here is that you can auction a single car, an engine, a group of engines, or what we have sometimes called a box of cars. If you're a runner and want to assemble a whole train, some of the fellows will take brand new cars, put them in a box, and you buy the whole box. And believe me, you basically pay the price of a set of trucks on those cars per car and the whole thing. It's actually a very good deal. Come Friday, we start off with our Swaparama from 9 o'clock in the morning till noontime. It's for the members of the conventions that are registered, and from noon to 4 o'clock, the public's allowed in. Those pictures there are not the layouts that you have in Nashville. Those are layouts from Chicago, and I think Milwaukee are some that's in there. Okay. During the week, we also have home layouts. This one actually shows the Dixon Model Railroad Club. And on the left-hand side, believe it or not, that's Line L. If you want to see a Line L running layout, this is what this gentleman has in his basement. It's one of the biggest Line L privately owned layouts in the country. It's fantastic. He sits there on a chair and it's all remote control. The entire layout runs around.
But you do have to bring your earplugs.
Yeah, and all the engines have smoke on them, and it's really fantastic what they have. Oh, and on the lower right-hand corner, he's got an outdoor D-scale layout as well. And the whole thing is on a mountain overlooking Nashville. So it's something to see. Okay, let's see. Next thing, yep, clinics. We have clinics. This happens to show the ones that we have in Chicago. And we'll be running clinics on Friday and Saturday. Bruce is helping me with setting up the clinics. And right now we have a full schedule. And on Friday, in the evening, we want to do something fun. In Chicago, we went to the Chicago Dogs baseball game, which was fantastic. And of course, we were able to make a special run to celebrate that. And everybody got one of those. Other things we do on Fridays is generally either a dinner train or a dinner cruise or something like that. And we've been able to go on R.J. Corman dinner train. In Louisville, we were out on a boat. In Milwaukee, we were in a trolley that had it. In Sacramento, we were on the Sacramento River train. This year, we're going to go on the General Jackson showboat. And you can see that's it. They're going to actually have a show. We're going to get in the river and we're going to have dinner. And that's on Friday night. And as of last night, it was sold out. We're completely full. The very last thing is the Sunday breakfast. Everybody has to have breakfast. And this started off as the manufacturer's breakfast, and it just is still a manufacturer's breakfast. It's a time when all the manufacturers, the local dealers, whoever wants to sell something has an opportunity of a couple of minutes, get up on a platform and to explain what they have. Everybody seems to enjoy that. Does anybody have any questions?
I think we'll put the questions on the chat thing, Dick,
Okay.
and we'll get on moving along with this.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that informative talk. I know we're all looking forward to Nashville coming up pretty soon. But let's move right along. John, if you're ready to get started on showing us all the ins and outs and the sneaky little things we can do to speed match our engines, we're waiting to hear it.
I'm all ready to go. So we're going to talk about speed matching. There's four names up there. I'm essentially the mouthpiece. Joe Peacock is the guy who designed and built the layouts. and Jim Kalinowski and Linwood Wells are doing the software. So why do we need speed matching? Well, the prototype railroads operate more than one locomotive in a consist to provide the power needed to move the train at the desired speed over the track, the route to be followed, which could be curves, mountains, that sort of thing. They call that a consist. And the prototype locomotives have the equipment to synchronize the members of the consist for efficient aggregated tractive effort. Well, our N-scale model locomotives from the different manufacturers, some even from the same manufacturer, don't run at the same speed for the same throttle setting. So we cannot consist the locomotives as freely as the prototype railroads can. Kind of limited to 2 locomotives or so of the same manufacturer. The example I gave there is 2 times Atlas GP9s. So speed matching theory, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One is V start, V midpoint, and V max settings. It's an easy way to get close, especially with 2 locomotives of the same type and manufacturer. It does require the locomotive owner to be familiar with the various CV tables and settings for the various decoders. And it also requires the locomotive owner to be familiar with Decoder Pro. Now, even using this method, you still may require some tweaking, and quite often close is often not good enough. The example of that is you're trying to speed match a low-geared, low-speed locomotive like Atlas to a cattle locomotive, which has a maximum speed close to 200 scale miles per hour. So that's where the speed matching layout comes in, which uses the 28 step speed table that most decoders can utilize. So what we have is a special speed matching script that operates with JMRI software and a layout. I have the word folding layout, and I'll show you what that is later. So it provides an easy method to set the 28-step speed table to match our locomotives, which then gives us the same freedom that the prototype has. Now, in order to do this, you've got to match locomotives to a given speed. Well, how do you choose the maximum speed? And maybe it's by type of locomotive, 70 miles an hour for freight, maybe 100 for passenger, 50 for switcher. But that's something you choose when you're deciding how you want to do your speed matching. Now, check that the maximum speed of your locomotive will actually go as fast as the maximum speed you want. So if you can't achieve that, you're never going to match the speed of that locomotive. That's for diesels. Doing it for steam locomotives is not as easy as for steam. Maximum speed is almost totally dependent on their wheel diameter, how they steam, and their vintage. So in that case, you're probably going to have to go and Google the prototype information to figure out what you should set it to. So speed matching operation, when you start the script, it builds a speed table for a decoder using ops mode programming. It then creates a text file, which it stores on the computer desktop for future use. And if you open the speed match script in Notepad, before you actually use it in JMRI, you'll get a bunch of instructions here that will help you with the process. So the user enters information about the locomotive into the speed matching table input panel, which you see on the right. Obvious things like the road number, the address, the type of locomotive, what scale, and this defaults to N, what brand of decoder, and that defaults to Digitrax. Please pardon the barking. My dog thinks he ought to sit in my knee. Set the acceleration and deceleration, which are desired, but that's actually disabled while the script is running. and the direction to be tested, which defaults to forward, and of course, the top speed. So you've got your computer connected to a command station using a local buffer or PR3 or 4. Using the appropriate cables, turn it on, let the computer boot Decoder Pro, and then run the speed matching script. And the first thing the speed matching script does is it creates a throttle within JMRI to run the locomotive. Before you do that, do an op switch 39 reset of your command station just to make sure it's clean running. And also make sure your locomotive and the layout are in top shape. The speed matching script will not take a poorly operating locomotive and make it into a good runner. And by fixing the speed matching layout, that means clean the track. So you place the locomotive at the start location, and this would be the equivalent of electrical district 1. And we'll get into that when we get to the layouts. The script will warm up the locomotive for a few laps around the layout in both directions if it's a diesel, just in the forward direction if steam. And a few laps is actually 10 in each direction. The system console messages are seen. This is an example of what you would see on the screen. And it starts summarizing and then warming up the locomotive. Then the top speed of the locomotive is measured, and that again is in both directions for diesels. Some folks use the ZoomTRAK speedometer to verify the speeds detected by the script, but there can be a difference. I don't use that for the simple reason that it's meant to be used with straight track, and we're doing it with curved track, so there's a little error there. I have found that there's a difference when you're measuring the speed on a cab diesel versus a regular switcher. And I've also noticed that the color of the locomotive will introduce a difference between the script and the speedometer reading. So the block detectors that are in the layout, and I'll show you how this is wired in a little later, they measure the time. The script adjusts the throttle until the appropriate speed is found for the speed step. It measures 7 speed steps. The rest are interpolated, and you can see the ones that are measured there. And you can see on the diagram at the right, starting about a third of the way down, measured speed, miles per hour, is equals 99.9, measurement number 1. The next one is 102, 102, and so on. And, the forward max speed is 102 miles an hour. And it's already been through the reverse, which happens to be 101, and it's a TCS decoder. So you see everything that's happening in the script. So the block detectors measure time. The script adjusts the throttle until the appropriate speed is found for the speed step. And here you can see it on throttle setting, for example, 13, and the speeds are 11.7, 10.7, and so on. So it works on those and adjusts them. And the values determined from the speed steps are written to the decoder. A text file is created on the computer, on the desktop, containing the speed step values and other appropriate information. And it's recommended that you save that information, because if you ever lose the values in the decoder, you know what to put back in. In fact, I recommend that after you finish this and you're in JMRI, into the file for the particular locomotive, you write all, and then you've got it already built in. Finally, the locomotive is released from the throttle and the throttle is discarded. Okay, let's talk about layouts. The layout is a circle of Cato Unitrack 19-inch radius. It's 24 sections. And on this particular layout, it's divided into 8 electrical sections. The dimensions 42 by 42, or when folded up, 42 by 21. You can see the BDL 168 in the center right there, along with the cabling to the track and the interface into the computer. This one is a non-folding layout. Again, it's got 19-inch ZoomTRAK, 24 sections, but in this case, we divided it into 12 electrical sections. Why? It allows a more rapid running of the script. There's more detection sections. The dimension is 40.5 square. We're using power poles to connect rail A and B in the ground. We connect Loconet and power in. And this shows the BDL 168 with the the special board that you don't have to solder to. And in essence, this is the wiring diagram. You're using BDL 168 home run diagram. You got Loconet, you got the power supply, you've got the detection sections, 8 or 12, and the zone wiring. And I'm not going to get into how to install the BDL 168. The full manual is on the ZoomTRAK's website. But it's not difficult. It takes a little while, but it's not difficult to do. So there is a caution. Use the same command station for programming as the command station which controls the layout. So your voltages are identical. The DCS 100 up to the 240 is 12 volts at the N scale setting. A Zephyr DCS 50, 51, 52, it's about 14.5 volts. So the difference is about 17%, which would result in a different end voltage for low speed gearing and high speed gearing. 17% of 90 miles per hour is different from 17% of 180 miles an hour. So if you match at 14.5 volts, probably not exactly matched at 12 and vice versa. And the software. The current version of the speed matching software is the title shown there. We have not yet tested that with the 4.99 series of JMRI or with Java 11. So we'll get to that. And I said earlier on first use, open the script and Notepad and read the instructions. And if you want to do this, if you want to build the layout and you need the software, then send me an email and we'll send it to you. And that's it.
Thank you, John. We don't have a lot of chat questions here. Let's go back to the beginning. The first question will be for concerning the convention. Will the app and timetable be available on the Microsoft Store?
Fraser, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll now.
Okay.
So if people can start filling that out, and please do, because we need your feedback.
Okay. Dick, if you're there, okay, it says answered, it will be on there. The timetable will be in the packet. Lee had a question on the speed loop, either 8 or 12 blocks. How does the script know how many blocks there are?
It's hardwired to the BDL 168.
Okay. And does the script work on Mac or Linus or just for Windows?
Windows.
And did you try it using NCE system?
I don't believe any of us in the North Raleigh Club have tried it on NCE. None of us have NCE. So I don't know how it would work.
I do, John. I might be willing to try it.
Okay.
Andy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, 28/128, you're going to get the same result.
All right. That is all the questions. Again, let's review that next month. We have a couple of things in the ready to go. We'll have Terry's blog, N-Scale Architect will be our vendor. We'll be presenting. Russ Coughlin will be talking to us about his stuff. And we're working on a layout tour of an HO layout, but it's about Brooklyn and how to do things in an inner city type environment. And I think it applies to whether it's N-scale or HO scale or whatever, the stuff is the same. But it should be very interesting if we can get that nailed down. Has everybody had a chance? If you haven't finished your poll with that, I want to thank you all for attending. Again, next month's meeting.
Just a couple of quick things. If anybody is interested, it's not too late to sign up for next weekend's operating sessions in Tulsa. It's 3 days of operations, and they're really great layouts. If you're into operations, it's a must.
Yeah, there are just a few operating slots left, but the unique thing about this event is that it is a layout, design, and operations weekend, and the all-day Saturday from 8 in the morning to 3:45 in the afternoon, there are presentations. There are 5 different presenters from around the country, all of them well-known around the country. Each of them has an hour-long presentation with breaks in the middle. There is a hot lunch that'll be provided as part of your registration. Registration is only $40. For the presentations you get, that's worth the money right there. That's what you're paying for. The op sessions, if there are some available, is the bonus. Particularly if you get to operate on my railroad, of course. But we do have just a very few spots left, but it's still worth the deal. Tulsa's a great place to visit. There's BNSF yard there. We'll have on the timetable, it gives you all the radio frequencies. So if you're interested in monitoring that, it's lots of good stuff here. Thanks for bringing that up, Bruce.
Also, I just want to mention that if you've got club shirts and you want to put the Nrail logo on your club shirt, you can Shirts Illustrated will put that on, and the link to Shirts Illustrated is on the website, on our Nrail website. If you haven't logged into the Nrail, well, obviously all of you have, because well, I shouldn't say that either. That's not necessarily true, but if you have somebody who doesn't have computer access and they need a copy of the newsletter, feel free to print it off for them. If you have club members who haven't logged into the website yet, encourage them to do so. There's a lot of really good information. As Steve mentioned, his clinic is posted there under tips and techniques, and there are a lot of good items on there. There's a link to Shirts Illustrated. We have an index for, I don't think JM's on the webcast today, but Jean-Marc is the person who does our reproduction. All of these are loaded up to YouTube, and we now have an index. So if you want a specific episode, you can go on the website, bring up the index, click on it, and it'll take you to the very specific segment that you want.
Very good. By the way, I talked about what's coming up next month, but I didn't say the date. April the 16th is the date of our next ZoomTRAK meeting. So it'll be the third Saturday that month.
Hey, Steve?
Yes.
Andy Zimmerman is on the call, and he is just signed on as our Instagram coordinator.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if you don't know, the Nrail board is making a concerted effort to try and get social media up and running all across the scope of things, so we can communicate with people in a variety of ways, not just of the ZoomTRAK, not just by email, not just through the website. We have a very active group that do the Facebook thing. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but that's my problem.
Bruce Arbo is the coordinator for Facebook.
Yes. And so keep your eye out on those things, and we will see you all on April the 16th, I hope. Tell your friends, get them to sign up. Join Nrail, and then they too can catch this live and not have to wait a month to see what this great stuff is we're presenting. Thanks again. You all have a great weekend. Remember, everyone, 2 a.m. tomorrow, time change. Lose an hour of sleep. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Joe.